The Battle of Tarakan was the first stage in the Borneo campaign of 1945. It began with an amphibious landing by Australian forces on the 1st of May, codenamed Operation Oboe 1, while the battle ended with success for the Allied forces over the Japanese defenders. This victory is generally regarded as having not justified its costs. Background. Geography. Tarakan is a triangle-shaped island 2.5 miles off the coast of Borneo. The island is roughly 15 miles long from its northernmost point to the southern tip and 11 miles wide towards the north of the island. The small island of Sador is located about 0.5 miles off Tarakan's west coast. Almost all of Tarakan's coastline is swampy, and in 1945 mangroves on the northern half of the island stretched 1 mile to 2 miles inland. The coastal mangroves in the southern portion of the island were narrower, inland from the swamps. Most of central Tarakan comprised a series of steep and densely forested hills just over 100 feet high. Tarakan is located 3 degrees north of the equator and has a tropical climate. The maximum temperature for most days is about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and relative humidity is consistently high at about 90%. In 1945, Tarakan town was the main settlement of the island. This town was located 2,000 yards inland, and was separated from the southwest coast by several small hills covered in low vegetation. 4 piers used to dock oil tankers were located on this coastline at the settlement of Linkas, and were connected to Tarakan town by 3 surfaced roads. Tarakan airfield was located about 1 mile northwest of Tarakan town. Of the island's 2 oil fields, Sazanap oil field was located at the northeast edge of the airfield, while the larger Joeata or Juatar oil field was 3 miles to the north. The village of Joeata was located on Tarakan's northwest coast and linked to Joeata oil field by a track. Japanese occupation. Prior to World War II, Tarakan formed part of the Netherlands East Indies and was an important oil production center. The island's 2 oil fields produced 80,000 barrels of oil per month in 1941. Securing Tarakan's oil fields formed one of Japan's early objectives during the Pacific War. Japanese forces landed on the island's east coast on the 11th of January 1942 and defeated the small Dutch garrison in 2 days of fighting, in which half the defenders were killed, while the oil fields were successfully sabotaged by the Dutch before their surrender. Japanese engineers were able to swiftly restore them to production, and 350,000 barrels were extracted each month by early 1944. Following the Dutch surrender, Tarakan's 5,000 inhabitants suffered under Japan's occupation policies. The large number of troops stationed on the island caused food shortages, and many civilians suffered from malnutrition as a result. The Japanese authorities brought 600 laborers to Tarakan from Java. The Japanese also forced an estimated 300 Javanese women to work as comfort women on Tarakan after enticing them to travel with false offers of clerical and clothes-making jobs. Tarakan's value to the Japanese evaporated with the rapid advance of Allied forces into the area during 1944. The last Japanese oil tanker left Tarakan in July 1944, and heavy Allied air raids later in the year destroyed the island's oil production and storage facilities. Hundreds of Indonesian civilians may have also been killed by these raids. The Allies also laid mines near Tarakan, which, combined with patrols by air and naval units, prevented Japanese merchant vessels and transports from docking at the island. In line with the island's declining importance, the Japanese garrison on Tarakan was reduced in early 1945. One of the 2 infantry battalions stationed on the island was withdrawn to Balikpapan. This battalion was destroyed by the Australian 7th Division in July during the Battle of Balikpapan. Allied plans. The primary objective for the Allied attack on Tarakan was to secure and develop the island's airstrip so that it could be used to provide air cover for subsequent landings in Brunei, Labuan and Balikpapan. The secondary objective for the operation was to secure Tarakan's oil fields and bring them into operation as a source of oil for the Allied forces in the theatre. The 9th Division and 26th Brigade headquarters were responsible for planning the invasion of Tarakan. This work began in early March when both units had arrived at Morotai, and the final plans were completed on the 24th of April. The planners' work was hampered by poor working conditions and difficulties in communicating with General MacArthur's general headquarters at Leyte. As part of the planning process, each of Tarakan's hills was assigned a code name. During the Australian Army's campaigns in New Guinea, geographic features had been named on an ad hoc basis, and it was hoped that selecting names prior to the battle would improve the precision of subsequent planning and communications. The Allied plans anticipated that Tarakan would be secured quickly. It was expected that the operation would involve a short fight for the airfield followed by a consolidation phase during which the island's airfield and port would be developed to support Allied operations. The planners did not foresee significant fighting in Tarakan's interior, and no plans were developed for operations in areas other than the landing beaches, Tarakan town and airfield. The planners did, however, correctly anticipate that the Japanese would make their main stand in an area other than the invasion beach and would not be capable of mounting the large counterattack. The Allied plans also expected that Tarakan would be transformed into a major base within days of the landing. Under the pre-invasion planning, it was intended that a wing of fighter aircraft would be based at Tarakan 6 days after the landing, and this force would be expanded to include an attack wing 9 days later, and staging facilities for a further 4 squadrons of aircraft within 21 days of the landing. It was also expected that the 26th Brigade Group and its supporting beach group would be ready to leave Tarakan by the 21st of May, and the RAF units could be redeployed in mid-June after providing support for the landing at Balikpapan. The Allied planners possessed detailed intelligence on Tarakan and its defenders. This intelligence had been gathered from a variety of sources which included signals intelligence, photographic reconnaissance flights and Dutch colonial officials. Tarakan was the Australian Services Reconnaissance Department's first priority from November 1944. Prior to the invasion, First Corps requested that the SRD provide intelligence on Japanese positions in northern and central Tarakan. A 5-man strong party landed on the island on the night of 25-26 April and successfully reconnoitred the defences on Tarakan's north coast. Though the operative who was assigned to the center of the island became lost and did not reach this area, the SRD operatives withdrew from Tarakan on the night of 29-30 April and landed on the mainland of Borneo. They were unable to transmit the intelligence they had collected, however, as their radio set malfunctioned. Members of the party eventually landed within the Allied beachhead on Tarakan on the 3rd of May to report to the 26th Brigade. But Whitehead was disappointed with the results of this operation and made no further use of SRD during the battle. Prelude. Opposing forces allies. The Allied force responsible for capturing Tarakan was centered around the very experienced Australian 26th Brigade group of nearly 12,000 soldiers. The 26th Brigade had been formed in 1940 and had seen action in North Africa and New Guinea. The brigade's infantry component was the 223rd, 224th and 248th battalions, also with much war experience. These battalions were joined by the 4th Commando Squadron and the 3rd Pioneer Battalion, which fought as infantry in this battle. The brigade group also included the 7th Field Regiment equipped with 24 25-pounder guns, a squadron from the 9th Armoured Regiment operating 18 Matilda tanks, a company of the 2nd Machine Gun Battalion, the 53rd Composite Anti-Aircraft Regiment and 2 Engineer Field Squadrons. These combat units were supported by a large number of logistics and medical units. including the 2nd Beach Group, whose role was to land supplies from the invasion fleet, while the 26th Brigade Group greatly outnumbered the known strength of Tarakan's Japanese defenders. The Allies committed this large force as their previous experience indicated that it would be difficult to defeat the Japanese force if it retreated into Tarakan's rugged interior. The 26th Brigade Group was supported by Allied air and naval units. The air units were drawn from the Australian 1st Tactical Air Force and United States 13th Air Force and included fighter and bomber squadrons. The naval force was drawn from the United States 7th Fleet and included several Royal Australian Navy warships and transports. Since the main objective of attacking Tarakan was to use the island's airstrip, the invasion force also included a large number of Royal Australian Air Force ground units, including No. 61 Airfield Construction Wing comprising No. 1 and No. 8 Airfield Construction Squadrons. The force which landed on Tarakan included nearly 1,000 United States and Dutch troops. The U.S. troops included the U.S. Army engineers who manned the invasion forces LCMs and LCVPs and the U.S. Army's 727th Amphibian Tractor Battalion Co.A, who manned the LVTs and United States Navy CB detachments aboard the landing ship tanks. The Dutch forces were organized into a company of Ambonese infantry commanded by Dutch officers and a civil affairs unit. Japan at the time of the Allied landing. The Japanese force on Tarakan numbered 2,200 men drawn from the Imperial Japanese Army and Imperial Japanese Navy. The largest unit was the 740-man-strong 455th Independent Infantry Battalion, which was commanded by Major Tadai Tokoi. 150 Army support troops were also on Tarakan. The Navy's contribution to Tarakan's garrison comprised 980 seamen commanded by Commander Kaoru Kaharu. The main naval unit was the 600-strong 2nd Naval Garrison Force. This naval unit was trained to fight as infantry and operated several coastal defense guns. The 350 Japanese civilian oil workers on Tarakan were also expected to fight in the event of an Allied attack. The Japanese force included about 50 Indonesians serving in a Home Guard unit. Major Tokoi directed the overall defense of Tarakan, though relations between the Army and Navy were poor. The Japanese forces were concentrated around Linkas, Tarakan's main port and the site of the only beaches suitable for landing troops. These defenders had spent the months before the invasion constructing defensive positions and laying mines. These fixed defenses were used extensively during the battle, with Japanese tactics being focused on tenaciously defending pre-prepared positions. The Japanese did not conduct any large counter-attacks, and most offensive actions were limited to small parties of raiders which attempted to infiltrate the Australian lines. Preparatory operations. The Japanese force on Tarakan was warned of the impending invasion in April, before the Allies began the pre-invasion bombardment of the island. The island's commander received a radio signal warning him of imminent attack, and the commander of Tarakan's oil depot was ordered to destroy the oil wells on the 15th of April. It is possible that this warning may have been issued as a result of a security leak from either the Chinese Republican Army's representative to Australia or MacArthur's headquarters. This did not have any effect on the subsequent battle, however, as the Japanese had been preparing defenses to resist invasion for several months and the Japanese were aware of the large Allied force which was being assembled at Morotai to attack Borneo. Prior to the arrival of the invasion force, the Japanese garrison on Tarakan and Borneo was subjected to intensive air and naval attacks from the 12th of April to the 29th of April. The RAF in USAAF also mounted air attacks against Japanese bases in China, French Indochina and the NATO suppressed Japanese air units throughout the region. These attacks destroyed all Japanese aircraft in the Tarakan area. The aerial bombing of Tarakan increased in intensity 5 days before the landing. These attacks were focused on the areas adjoining the planned landing beaches at Linkas and sought to neutralize the Japanese defenses in these areas. The oil storage tanks at Linkas were a key objective, as it was feared that the oil in these tanks could be ignited and used against Allied troops. These bombardments forced much of Tarakan's civilian population to flee inland. The Tarakan attack force was assembled at Morotai during March and April 1945. The 26th Brigade Group was transported from Australia to Morotai by United States Army transports and arrived in mid-April and began to prepare their equipment for an amphibious landing. Due to a shortage of shipping, all units were ordered to leave non-essential vehicles at Morotai when they began to embark onto assault transports on the 20th of April. The commander of the 1st Tactical Air Force attempted to resist this order, but was overridden by his superior officer, Air Vice Marshal William Bostock. Most units were embarked by the 22nd of April, and the assault troops practiced landing operations for several days. A small convoy of ships carrying a force ordered to capture Sador Island off the coast of Tarakan left Morotai on the 26th of April, and the main invasion convoy of 150 ships sailed the next day. Due to the need to clear both the large number of naval mines which had been laid around Tarakan and the extensive beach obstacles at Linkas, the Allies did not attempt a surprise landing. A group of United States Navy minesweepers and destroyers arrived off Tarakan on the 27th of April and began clearing mines, most of which had been originally laid by Allied aircraft. This operation was completed by the 1st of May at a cost of 2 small minesweepers. Damaged USNPT boats also arrived off Tarakan on the 28th of April and illuminated and strafed the invasion beaches at night to prevent the Japanese from repairing their beach defenses. On the 30th of April, the 4th Commando Squadron and the 57th Battery of the 7th Field Regiment were landed on the nearby Sador Island in order to support the engineers tasked with clearing the obstacles off the invasion beaches. This force rapidly secured the undefended island. The landing on Sador Island was the first time Australian soldiers had landed on non-Australian territory in the Pacific since late 1941. The only Allied losses in this operation were aboard US Jenkins, which was damaged when she struck a mine while supporting the landing. The task of clearing the beach obstacles at Linkas was assigned to the 13th Field Company. These defenses comprised rows of barbed wire, wooden posts and steel rails which extended 125 yards from the beach. At 1100 on the 30th of April, 8 parties of engineers went forward in LVTs and landing craft to clear the obstacles. The engineers were supported by the guns on Sador Island and Allied warships and aircraft. Operating under Japanese fire, the engineers cleared all the obstacles obstructing the landing beaches. While heavy casualties had been expected, the 13th completed their task without loss.